the McLaren 570 GT, the very first McLaren with a boot in the rear. What's about that, and what about the other models in the McLaren Sports Series, the 540C and also the 570S? We'll also take a look at those ones. So it's about the McLaren Sports Series with a focus on the new GT model. Here today on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. Let's now dig into the details. Exterior on this one, also on two other cars, interior comparison, and of course the driving experience with this super sports car. Let's go! And we also love to show you different colors and also here different versions of the McLaren Sports Series, and it's hard to differentiate them really. For example, the red car there, that's the 540. This one here is our GT, the 570 GT. This one here, the 570S. And we're going to take a detailed look into the difference, because when you just look at them for the very front here, you don't see so much differences. You really have to look in detail. And we'll start here with the model overview with the lowest entry McLaren. It's about 160,000 euros here, entry price in Germany. So it's actually one of the cheapest McLaren you can get, the 540C. So not to confuse that one. And how can you see it's really a basis McLaren? Well, for example, in the front, there's no carbon fiber used, so more simple material, and it's also not that strong overall in the front, but you really have to look closely then. And also the alloy is not a B-color scheme and no ceramic brakes here, so this is still standard, but of course, I mean standard in a high level speaking. And a short look into the interior of the 540C, and well, the difference are really more, you know, what trim you pick on the inside and what surfaces. How can you really see what it is? There's a small sign in the center console. And what about the new 570 GT? Well, the S is the sporty pinnacle. This one here is the comfort pinnacle of the Sports Series. And in the front, also the comparison to the 540C here, we already have the carbon spoiler. It's a little bit bigger, and of course a massive appearance. In general, the Sports Series, if you compare it to the Super Series, for example, or the Ultimate Series, the ones that are even more expensive, have even more power, you can check those comparisons. There's also a separate static video where we introduced all of the new McLaren model lineups. You can check that one out in the video description. But here, my point was that the Sports Series, they have a more agile, a sharper appearance in the front, a more modern look. By the way, I like it when we have the British number plates here, because they are, you know, from plastics and they can bend better to the round front of the McLaren. Won't work that well with German number plates. 4.53 meters or 14'8" is the total length of this super sports car. That's all the same for the whole Sports Series. What can we see here? Special for the GT version is where the 540, for example, has here this palladium, just dark look inside here in this feather separation. I'll explain you that one later soon. Or also, for example, carbon fiber would be available. We see that very soon in the 570S. Here, this is painted in vehicle color because the scheme of the GT model is more, you know, a road scheme, not that aggressive, not that screaming out, more in an elegant way. And that also accounts for the roof line. And to me, I think it's at the moment even the most beautiful McLaren, because normally for the engine, you know, the inside of the roofline would drop here. But here, as we have the trunk space on the inside, you see we have a continuously flowing roofline. And I think that's really very beautiful. And by the way, also you can see lightweight materials are used here. And very interesting also when we open it, I've shown you it once initially in the beginning. On the key there are two separate buttons then, one for the rear, one for the front. You know, it's also an eye catcher, especially for McLaren, to open this additional boot. And in the front you have 150 liters. Together with this one, then you can boost up to, or you can boot it up to 370 liters then. I mean, that's not, you know, a family carrier car, but at least you have more versatility than in everyday driving. And there it is. Here you can access it. I mean, it's not maybe for really heavy luggage, but for example, if you put some jackets there or you know, some bags with clothes. Otherwise, before you only had the possibility to flip the seats and then access it like from here. So now it's really easier to put some light stuff faster in and out. And then, you know, well, the other thing that is, you know, not that good, you cannot look that well at the engine, and the only thing you can do is open this part here, and then, you know, there's some service entry for the fluids, but that's about it. I mean, with the other models you also cannot open the engine totally, but here it's even more covered. So that's the downside of this more versatile part. And you show you the front trunk here, by the way, on the key, you can feel it. There's some two knobs here on each of the wheels, very sweet solution for the rear. And if I press here, then it opens the front. And it's good, there's no second security mechanism, so you can open it quite easily. And it's really reasonable. It's okay, you can get along with it. Stuff shouldn't be too high. This one is the cover for the car. You can get a soft cover for the car, and there you can see the maximum height as well for the front trunk. But you know, for a weekend trip, it works. Also some light in the front trunk and a 12-volt power supply to recharge some stuff. And the rear also has a very modern look, also with those new taillights for the Sports Series. You can also take a look at the LED signature when we look at the 570S. Here the GT version, well, from the rear it looks pretty much the same as the S version, also with this huge carbon fiber diffuser right there. And here we can also talk about the engine, which is a 3.8 liter V8. Here the model name says it with 570 horsepower. In a 540, that was on 540 horsepower, and you know, pretty much it's not so much of a difference. And in acceleration figures, here we get about 3.4 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles an hour. Well, this car here, the GT, because we have the other roofline with some more glass and so, and about 37 kilos heavier than the S model. And so the S is the fastest, but that's just, you know, a little bit of a difference, 3.2 for the S model we'll show you very soon. So here the top model, the 570S, with a huge carbon front spoiler, and this is really the pinnacle of the Sports Series. Also has a little bit more horsepower, as the name says. That's really practical to remember, definitely. So here in the side row you can see more of the 570, because you have the 570S logo right here. And this inlet here is from real carbon fiber, and there you can also imagine this is kind of the silhouette of a feather, and that is kind of the signature for the Sports Series. Feather going right here, and it's also the aerodynamics that is directing the airstream to the engine to cool it down. By the way, in the front we have 19-inch alloys, and in the back 20-inch rims here in a nice B color scheme. We like that design here. It fits very well also with, you know, the 3D design. Here also mounted with the ceramic brakes. They are optional for the other Sports Series model. Here with the 570S, they come directly with the ceramic brakes, but of course this one is also the most expensive model of the Sports Series. And carbon fiber is also here the scheme of the 570S, really massive with its rear diffuser. And the LED signature, you can see it here very well. And I mean, again, not so many differences, really, that the carbon fiber is put here. That is the main difference. And what about the engine here? Well, you cannot open it that well, but you can at least push this button here. And then you got this small cover for the fluids, water and oil. But that's about it. Other than that, you can just look at the engine from the outside, but still already a really massive appearance. This is the car key again, by the way, and here a double click to flip out the side mirrors and to open the window just a little bit, and then we can get inside. It's always funny. Grab around beneath here, then you can open those spectacular doors. And by the way, when you close it, be sure never to squeeze your fingers. So always like hold on here. That's to go safe, really. And yeah, of course, it's a signature opening here. Definitely, it's not the most practical solution. Here, by the way, again, the key to open the front trunk, that is possible. But of course, I mean, it's really always very, very spectacular. Bowers & Wilkins sound system, and well, here's some storage space, by the way, we can directly show you. And what is interesting here, there's, by the way, a Ferrari sound in the rear, in our back. Then what you can see right here, the Sports Series, it's got this changed monocoque, and before, or also in the Super Series, it's thicker here, and also it doesn't have this curve, and so we can get easier into the interior. And what else can we see? Well, there's also Alcantara available for the seats, so if you buy a McLaren, please consider this. It's better for racing, better for the climate, better for your climate, your personal climate, and also for the global climate, of course, if you use Alcantara instead of animal skin. Then the steering wheel, sporty stuff, also with those curved control bars for lights and also the turning indicators, very spectacular again, use of carbon fiber. And then when I get inside, I'll show you what I mean with this changed monocoque. And right here, I mean, it's not too easy to get in here, but here you can at least use this curve here, and that's an easier entry than, for example, into the Super Series. You'll also see it in our comparison video from all of the series. Here you don't find any seat controls, and they're really hidden on the right part of the seats. And this is really, point for criticism, because the controls for the seats are not really logical. You got several options to put them, in every direction. But then again, it's not like you, for example, see how a seat is set up. You just do it blindfolded and have to get used to it. Where does the seat do what? That's really strange illusion. For example, here you can put it up and down, but you really have to find the buttons first. What's the right button to go front and rear. Also, the electric motors sound a little bit weird, but to go in detail. But I mean, if a car like this here, the GT, costs about 200,000 euros in Germany, I think we have every right to go into the detail. Nice, by the way, that they've covered all of the ceiling in Alcantara, and that also shows what you could, for example, do with the seats. What is the main difference here with the interior in the new GT version? It is light. It's not the Spider version. The Spider version of the 570 will follow next year as well, but here we got this panoramic roof. A lot of light is in the interior. This is exclusively to the 570 GT. And also because we have the additional glass in the rear, there comes even more light into the interior. So this is the very bright interior, the main difference of this car. And of course, a very sporty seating position. But I mean, it's not that you get in and think, oh, I have to get out, I get back pain. That's still relatively okay. However, it's not the best car for tall people. Due to this panoramic roof, I have more headspace actually, so the GT is maybe better for tall people, but you see here on the sides, it gets a little bit close. However, I had, I think, more problems in the Lamborghini, so if you're really tall, I think the McLaren GT here could be a good solution, better solution maybe than the Lamborghini as for the height here in the interior. And then I'll close the door. I reach right here. You have to use some power to close the door, and then on the inside here you can also open it again, but use some force at least here. Yeah, so it is really a cozy atmosphere, and I like the new bright atmosphere. Of course there's kind of sun protection here in as well, but of course it will get a little bit hotter in very hot climate with that one here, and I would always prefer the Spider. We also got this from the Super series, also a driving review with the Spider. You should check that one out as well. In general, the cockpit is defined by the separation of the middle console right here, also again with carbon fiber, and those air cockpit vents inspired by aircraft, also the Bowers & Wilkins speakers with a nice design. And here again the separation, small separation between driver and co-driver with some small spaces here, also USB slots. And this one here, we'll take a detailed look at this one here quite soon. This one here is the control panel for all of the sports stuff, let's take it that way, and also digital instruments. Let's go into the details there. Taking a look at the instruments, nice visualization. Then let's start the car. Bum, bum. Then you can also see in the inside, of course, a focus on the RPMs here, and of course the digital speedometer in the middle. That's the most important part of this car. And well, other than that, you don't need so much here, and also consumption of course won't matter that much. And to show you some more, on the left side you can change some settings. Then for example here the driving height, you can change that one, for example for a ramp. You know, if you want to go into a basement ramp, that is quite useful stuff, for example. And so this is kind of the menu here on the left side, and you do it with a small column next to the steering wheel. Then to control all of your racing stuff, what is it here? First of all, to put in gears, neutral, drive mode, reverse. Open the trunk in the front, in the rear, close, open the car. And then here, the left button here, it's not illuminated because I've turned the engine off, that you can better hear me. This one here is for the handling, H for handling. Normal, sporty handling, more direct approach for the suspension and the steering, and track. And you have to activate it when you press active here, like this one here, then active, then you can also change that stuff. And electronic stability control, ESC off, you can put it here as well. Then P for powertrain, normal, S, better throttle input, track for the most power input. And together with this one here, track and track, handling and powertrain, that one would be for the racetrack then. And it makes sense if you want to reduce the stability controls, but normal driving life will be just like this. Believe me, the car has enough power. And there's also a launch control available then when the engine is also warm enough already, and then you can really hammer it from standstill. But again, even if you won't use the launch control, you'll have a great acceleration, of course. The 570 GT can really be, seen from the outside because of the trunk, but here in the inside you can see it here at the nice badge, and also here below that is a small adaptive beverage holder. So below this small armrest, build quality could be a little bit higher here. Then I can also have 3 USB ports. That's really good. That way. No, come on. There it is. And also 12-volt power supply is available. Then I can also charge my phone. And the infotainment system is kept pretty simple. Like an iPhone 6S or something like that. Phone you can, for example, connect via Bluetooth. That is available. This is the home button in the lower part. Media, I have put in the phone via USB right now. Oh, nice sound from the Bowers & Wilkins system here. Then, for example, the GPS, I can show you how that looks like. Also from loading times. Let's see if we can scroll around it like with an iPhone. Come on. not as I would expect it. There it is now. See, the reaction time could be a little better, but there in this view you can use it iPhone or iPad alike. But again, reaction time could be a little bit faster. I would prefer that. So overall, pretty simple, but I mean, it does the job basically. Here you can also set the climate settings, and that is, to reduce buttons. I still prefer have climate buttons, but here you can also do it like this or like this to change the temperature, AC on and off here when the car is running, for example. And also like where the vents should be. Hey, nice. Look at here. Here's a helmet on the race driver. And the rear view camera, to show you right here, is relatively small and, well, for such a car, rather weird. Maybe a better resolution and, well, but how to put it bigger here? Therefore the screen, that is the disadvantage of this vertical screen, that you're not able to put the rear view camera wider. And then here, last but not least, the glove box to store some stuff there. So let's drive this beast, and we can start here, for example, with putting the driving height up, because we have a small ramp here, and then I don't have to be, that afraid to go over this ramp here. Now you also heard that the height is being put up a little bit, and when we're going fast, that automatically goes down, or I can also do it manually again. And the big question here will also be, because we have normal city driving and also some Autobahn hammering the car, but the big question is really, will this be drivable as a normal everyday driving car? This is really, a crucial part of our driving review. So I'll also take a look at the GPS, how that one really plays out, how that works. It's not too good to control it here actually. So far everything is calm. We're going back to the automatic mode. You guys should get ready also for some adrenaline stuff. Of course, when you're driving around with such a car, a lot of people are looking, because it's totally not usual to drive such a car, and of course also the sound it creates when you really hammer the throttle. When I'm in automatic mode, it also says A in the front instruments, and I think, well, I don't want to wait anymore. No. That's the advantage of such a car. And the feeling is here also, when in a normal driving, it's really like a Formula 1 car feeling. So you're directly in this racing position, and you think about, even if you just go to the ice cream parlor, let's go to the racetrack, and the steering is totally direct. You're sitting directly on the road. And the main difference is, with the GT model here, you got softer dampers. And I think it's really good that they are going in such a direction, because hardly any McLarens are used on the racetrack. Who would dare to take a 200,000 euro car on a racetrack? Most of the time they're used, for leisure travel, just a little bit cruising around, also in the city, showing off and stuff. And for that, it's also nice to have a little bit softer dampers, definitely. Really impressive to go with such a sound through the city here. And let's see where we're heading, because we want to go to the Autobahn, you know, to give you some more interesting looks on that one. But here so far, I think I do realize a difference when you think about, I've driven other McLaren so far, the 12C, also the 650S, and this one here is more comfortable. I already realized that now, just when going over some small bumps. Also the steering is a little bit lighter and softer, so you don't feel that aggression that you would feel maybe with the other models. What I also realized is, due to this panoramic roof, it's getting quite hot in here, so you have to be aware of that when you're always living in very hot temperatures. Then you can always manual shift also here with the shifting pedals. Great clicking sound do they have. They don't they here? Excellent, also with carbon fiber. And you can always go back then to the automatic mode. Also with the, you know, when you put active here in this command console I showed you earlier, then you can also change between manual and auto, pressing it once, auto, pressing it twice, and you go to the manual mode again. And then you can also change some more to the handling. At the moment in the tour mode, but I can also take, for example, handling in the sport mode. See if that changes anything from steering. Yeah, a little bit. So now it's soft. Going to sport mode, it's a little bit stiffer, and track mode, then the suspension is stiffer and also steering a little bit. Here now in the track handling mode, feel when you go over some small bumps there, for example, a little bit stiffer. Going to normal, that I would recommend really for city driving. That is really comfortable. So it's definitely the most comfortable McLaren I've driven so far. Also, you can go for the powertrain like this, for example, now normal mode. And then if I go to the sport mode, for example, get a better throttle input. You also hear more from the exhaust and track. Even more, just a little bit pressing the throttle, and then the car already get loose. Usually I just leave that console, leave in automatic, drive in the normal cruising mode, because that's the most comfortable for being inside the city, and you will soon also see on the Autobahn you can easily get along with that also as for the power. Also from a seating position, and well, there's a lot of light into the interior, so to me, especially in winter times, this car will also you know, do some fun, and you can also use it at some cruising speed that is also possible. So, some cornering, wow, what handling, you got the direct control of the car. By the way, do you hear the sound? Because I have this mode activated that the car goes higher when I'm at lower speeds, for example the ramps. As soon as I go about 50-60 kilometers an hour, the car automatically goes lower again. Now, again, we got the normal driving height. Looking forward to the Autobahn, guys? I do, because, I mean, when you're driving this car in the city, you can never live up to its potential. But I really have to admit, especially, you know, the development over the past years. When I was firstly driving the 12C, I think 3 years ago, the 12C also just in the neutral drive, it had so much forward movement. Just when you left the brakes, it was always like, I have to race, I can't get buried anymore. But here, you know, it's a little bit more relaxed. Also, you know, when you got it in the normal mode here, the engine is a little bit more silent. And when I lift the brakes, the car is not pushing to the front directly. You can also drive this car a little bit calmer, and that is also a very important aspect, especially with the... No, we won't let anyone overtake us here, not today. A little bit of hearing it from the turbo charging, of course, no, not naturally aspirated engine here. So guys, what do you think? We're at 90 kilometers an hour at the moment. Michel is already taking off the headphones to protect his ears. 100 kilometers an hour now. This is unlimited speed here, and I just always search for a very safe spot to enter the Autobahn, also at the higher speeds, you know, just to be very sure. So let's go. And 200. So that was not a 100 to 200 acceleration. That was that was not a 0 to 100. That was 100 to 200 acceleration. Here now also interesting bumps in the road. Still a good job from the car. And of course, well, the sound insulation. I have to raise my voice now, no question. But you know, the very interesting thing here. It's at 200 kilometers an hour and it feels like nothing. It feels like I would be driving maybe, you know, with a normal car at 50. So it's really like nothing. You don't really feel the speed. You're totally relaxed and you see like, it is almost like we were going, every other car would be going like in slow motion. It's a really strange feeling. And you hardly have that in any other car. And especially here with the GT, which combines then this super sports characteristic with comfort, it feels relatively easy to drive. So it's for me also the easiest McLaren to drive yet. The 650S, for example, I would not recommend you for everyday driving because it's just, you know, has also too much power from the characteristics. But here, when you're in the normal driving mode, it's perfectly fine to drive. And here, I'm really eased at 200 kilometers an hour. There's no hassle and you got full control. Also the ceramic brakes are doing a good job. You have to hammer them, you know, for the sports car characteristics. And what's also interesting, when I'm going at 170, for example, and then hit the throttle, look at what happens. Fourth gear. So that was 170 to 230 kilometers an hour. It's really like, with other cars you go like 0 to 50. Wow, so it's really amazing. Also when you're changing lanes here, the car is perfectly stable. Nothing that can do anything. So really a very good result here. And the seating position and also the grip to the steering wheel, also the look to the front is very nice. So you feel like you would be really in the perfect control here. You can always shift down yourself, that you can get better acceleration from standstill kind of. Fourth gear, fifth. And then we can also check out the other modes. We go to the active mode again, then for example go, let's say sport handling, then it gets a little bit rougher here. Doesn't make a huge difference, a little bit more contact to the road, but I would also prefer the more comfortable position. And also I can put the powertrain to sport. Then the downshifting process is earlier and the upshifting process is later. For example, now it might be also in 7th gear in the normal mode, here in 6th gear with the sport mode. When I'm in track mode, then there's even better performance, also changes the digital display, and when I hit the throttle there, then I get the more direct input then. But I'm in the manual mode as soon as I pick those ones here. Let's see if we can also get no, it's still manual mode. So you can get really active then with the shifting pedals. So as soon as you deactivate this active mode, it switches back to the automatic mode again. So you can always play around with that. And I mean, the driving modes wouldn't be too important for me. For me, it would be maybe more important just to use the shifting pedals quite more often, because that's a lot of fun to do that. 3rd gear. What the fuck? 250. What the hell? Was there someone behind us? Really insane car. And to me, the most interesting thing is that you're not like totally stressed, because there are some sports cars that really tend to stress you a lot because they are rather uncontrollable. And with that one here, you can still remain pretty much in control. So I'm going off another Autobahn here to show you some transition. With 100, perfect control, totally easy. Having the brakes here right now, this is racetrack feeling, you know. So for me, the most fun is, you know, if you have a certain amount of comfort still, just remain in normal mode, but then use the shifting pedals to have more fun. That would be, you know, my favorite setup. And we're going off the motorway here again to also change the motorways a little bit around. So I think this is my, besides Spider, you know, I love driving with the open top, but so far this is my favorite McLaren ride so far, because I appreciate when sports cars combine a certain amount of comfort and still with the emotional and you know, performance drive feeling. Not unlike this 370Z, the Nissan in front of there. That's really rough car, and I don't like riding that one. Hui. Well, of course, you know, some adrenaline is rushing, but I'm not that, you know, I'm not that stressed. Although we've just driven 250, and I mean, you feel it in the throttle. It's not like ending at 250, no way. It's like, of course, this car goes way faster than. You know, at some point you have to say, okay, come on, you know, let's take it secure. Don't do this. And I'm also showing you this performance, being controlled surround when there's also not so much traffic. And I can just advise you, please don't go that fast, because I'm also only going that fast because I have, you know, really a lot of hours of experience on driving on racetracks. I've driven several McLaren cars, other super sports cars, and I really have to admit, when I drove the McLaren the very first time, I was also overwhelmed by the, you know, overall vehicle handling, feeling, performance, and you always have to be very, very realistic with your driving capabilities. For example, I say, you know, I'm an experienced driver, yes, but I'm not like a very good race driver or something like that. I have more practice than, you know, a lot of other guys, but still you have to be very realistic. Always say, okay, maybe always take a step down, don't exaggerate it, don't think you're the best driver in the world, and so you keep you and yourself also safe. Of course, we can leave here, dry road, a little bit more fun when going on the motorway again with 80 kilometers. Wow, what the side handling performance! And and you're again at the next car. It's like 1 second and you meet the next car. So this one could be really much at home on the racetrack. If you compare it with other really sporty cars I have, for example, driven lately. I've driven a Porsche Cayman on the racetrack lately. That one, for example, of course, smaller car, lighter car. And that one, for example, feels a little bit more neutral and balanced in handling. Here you feel that you have a full-size super sports car. That means that gives you better going straight, more the supercar feeling of having the pure performance going straight, but the handling, for example, is a little bit better in the Porsche Cayman because it feels more agile than. However, I mean, look at that here, 80 kilometers an hour, and it feels like you would be directly sitting on the front wheels, or you have a Matchbox car in your hand, and this Matchbox car is just like directed on the fake road. So it's kind of like an unnatural driving feeling, that direct and that much the car is gluing to the road. And from this driving perspective here, I think I would really probably go for that one here, or maybe wait for the Spider version for the Sport Series that is to come. And even if I would have like all the money in the world and would like to buy a McLaren, I would probably not go for the Ultimate or for the Super Series. I really would stick probably with that one here. It's more the pure feeling, and also the comfort is really, really good to me. So we're going back here on the Autobahn high speed again. We're having some more fun here. And well, I think it could be worse for you to, you know, take another look at the digital speedometer. Maybe that's also a lot of fun for you to see that one. So we change cameras a little bit, then we'll be back with some pure performance impressions for you. So let's go with some impressions also from the instruments, that you can see sound and performance in direct relation. That will be a lot of fun for you as well. Let's go here now on to the motor road. I use the shifting pedals. Wow. So if I want to relax in between, you could go up here to the 7th gear, and then the car runs relatively silent. See here, 7th gear, 120 kilometers an hour, about 2000 RPM. And then you can, for example, wait to the road being cleared in front of you. Consumption is about over 20 liters. But I mean, of course, we did that performance test. So if you're riding it normally, you can also drop it like 5 liters down, but maybe also consumption won't matter for you so much with that car. It's really incredible. We're going 150 and it's really, again, feels like nothing. And don't underestimate the braking, because that always takes more time than accelerating in this case. And you have always to be ready to use the brakes properly. So, about it here now. Wow. What do you think about the instruments and the acceleration here? Maybe once more from a little bit lower speed. That's always also interesting. So again, you can see when I'm not using the shifting pedals, what is the automatic doing. It's getting rougher on the road. You also hear that on camera. I have to hold on the steering wheel for that one, definitely. Sometimes you have the effect a little bit that the tires direct the steering wheel, and I mean that belongs to a feeling of a sports car, but you have to get used to that, definitely, that it's not only you that is controlling the steering wheel, you also got the direct contact to the road, definitely. Alright guys, what do you think? And now our conclusion on the McLaren Sports Series here, the special one, the 570 GT, the newest derivative of this series. And I think I'm overall quite impressed, by the way. For example, with the exterior, I think it's a really nice exterior. It's a little bit dividing the opinions between people finding the Sports Series more beautiful and others more for this classic McLaren look. I think this one here has a really modern and nice look. Then the interior, well, build quality wise, there could be a little bit stepping up the game. That is maybe, for a 200,000 euro car, they could be a little bit better in this case then. And of course, be sure to pick the Alcantara options if you're thinking about purchasing one. The driving experience was really impressive. First of all, I mean, driving 250 kilometers an hour feels like driving 50. They've really managed that very well. It's just a great handling car, no question. And especially the GT version is my favorite one because you always drive this car also, in your everyday driving life and not only on the racetrack, and therefore this plus in comfort is really a very wise decision, and I think it is the most comfortable McLaren I've driven so far. So from a McLaren perspective, my favorite driving perspective, especially if you leave it just in the normal modes, it's also a relatively well controllable car, whereas the Super Series car, they're really a little bit more aggressive. The power is even more that you get more wheel spin even in the normal driving modes. So this one here is also suitable for not so much experienced drivers as for super sports cars. Now I'm looking forward to hear your opinion in exterior, interior and our driving experience. And I hope you also enjoyed this model overview, and also check out our other McLaren reviews if you found that one here very interesting. Thank you very much for supporting Autogefühl. See each other at the next episode.